Hello everyone, today we're going to be taking a look at a different naval miniatures game. In this case we're going to be playing Naval Thunder Battleship Row. In this video I'm going to walk you guys through the basics of how to play and just a quick little battle very similar to the one that I did for Victory at Sea. So big differences between Victory at Sea and this one. In this one you're required to print out sort of like this little ship sheet that gives you details about the specific sheet. When people usually look at this they go, oh, it's extra paperwork. It's actually really easy to do, and it's also actually really easy to go ahead and set up on your own. So I would say don't panic. If you get the expansion called Rivals, you're going to have the ability to go ahead and actually print these out in Excel. If you have it, you can always import it over to Google Sheets as well. Another different thing about this system as opposed to especially Victory at Sea is the fact that a lot of the rules and things are kind of built right into these ship sheets, and you'll find that actually a little bit simpler, but again we'll go over more of the details when we also get there. Another thing I've done on the table to mix things up a bit is I've brought out this quick reference sheet, which you can actually get when you get the PDF if you get it from the Wargame Vault. You can also write this up if you like. And the other thing we've done is we've actually changed our ship counters. Traditionally when I did the ship counters I used the ones that came with Victory at Sea, but today I went ahead and got some of these that I actually found online that are really cool because you get the actual name of the ship and the scale tends to be slightly better. Again, these ships are still overscaled. In addition, what I've done is I've gone and got status markers, which I've marked up on the side of the table here, that we can use to let people know what's kind of going on. I have a calculator and I also have a ruler. So to get started with this particular system, we're going to go ahead and take a look at one of the ship data cards. This is the first thing you need to know. Up at the tip top you get the name. The good news is those data cards come with every ship pretty much in World War II, especially if you have Rivals, then you get everybody, which is really cool. It tells you the class of the ship. It tells you what the normal target number is to hit it. It also gives you its speed and movement points, not inches. It gives you the fire control, its armor value, its secondary armor value, how good it is at anti-aircraft, its move step, shoot step. Then it gives you its main battery layout, secondary battery layout, as well as all the data for the guns, all the data for the torpedoes, if it's carrying any of this. And then way down at the bottom, it gives you this handy dandy little thing where you can write in your orders. This is a game where you have to write orders before you can actually execute them. So things are a little different, as you'll see. So anyway, let's go ahead and begin. So the first thing you do when you get this game is usually build your fleet, just like we've done over here. And after you've gone ahead and built your fleet, you want to go ahead and up where it says command, take your flagship, give it a command of 10, and then give everybody else a command rating of 8. Command is basically how efficient it is to deal with damage control, what its morale is, things along those lines. If you're playing with crew scores, you can also put them in this box at this particular time. In our particular battle, we have the Kent class, the HMS Berwick. We have 2 tribal class destroyers, the Gurkha and the Maori. On the other side, this time we're going to be doing things a little differently. We're going to have the Italian Navy. We have a typical Axis merchant ship, the MV1, 2, and MV3. After that, you get a little box. This is Hull, which tells you how many hit points it basically has. What I've done is, thanks to Tabletop Sim, is I built a little sequential counter right here to keep track of that rather than trying to scribble it. It would take me forever. And it also gives you things along those lines on the sheet. That's basically all there is to this. This is pretty handy. So when you play this game, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to begin with things like your carrier and land phase, your submarine phase, and things along those lines. But we're going to skip that for now because those are a little bit more complicated and a little less visual as well. So in the movement phase is broken down into 3 different sections. You have the battleship phase, cruiser, and then the destroyer phase. Basically, this means that if your ship has a rating of move step battleship, you move with all the battleships at the same time. If you have a cruiser, you do the cruiser, and destroyer is destroyer. This is cool because you invert that when you actually do the shooting phase, which I think is a neat little detail. So in my particular case, I'm going to assume that the 3 British ships are in formation, which is going to save me a little bit of paperwork. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to the Berwick here, and I'm going to write in its orders. This is, again, you're going to write this during the battleship phase. I don't need to write this now because he's a cruiser and these 2 guys are destroyers. Since they're in formation, they go at the slowest speed, which in this case would be the cruiser. So I'm actually not going to write anything down for the British. Over on the Italians on the flip side, again, I'm going to assume they're in formation behind MV1 right here. I'm going to go ahead and give him the order. Turn 1. He doesn't have any guns, so I don't have to give any gun orders at this time. He's going to go forward his speed of 4. So then over on here, I'm going to say turn 1. He's going to say FF, meaning he's just going to follow. And that's it. all movement is done simultaneously. So again, we haven't done the cruiser phase and the destroyer phase yet because these guys all have the movement of a battleship. So then of course we grab our handy dandy ruler. We're going to put this up against the side, and then we're going to look at what our movement was. We ordered 4, so we're not turning or anything like that. So we're going to go ahead and come up 4. Since these guys are in formation, these guys are assumed to be moving basically together. In the real game, especially in the tabletop, both players move all their battleship stuff at this phase. So that's the end of the battleship movement phase. Now we move to the cruiser movement phase. Now, since this guy is the head and these two guys are destroyers, and he's our leader, we really only have to give him orders as far as formation goes. So I'm going to go ahead and give him his initial orders. So I'm going to go ahead and go straight. He has a total of 8 movement points. So I'm going to go 4, and then I'm going to go ahead and take a turn support, and then I'm going to go another 3. All turns cost 1 point. When you turn, you can turn up to 90 degrees total. You could actually do a zigzag if you wanted, but I'm not sure why you would do that. So for turn 1, we're going to go forward 4 inches. We're going to take a turn to port, and then we're going to go forward another 3. Since these guys are all in formation, again, we can break them out of formation anytime. We're just going to keep them in formation. And now we're going to go ahead. Again, we're in the cruiser movement phase. We'll go ahead and grab a ruler and go ahead and move him as well. We can do this with the built-in ruler, and I'll probably do that from now on, but at least you can kind of see what this looks like. So we ordered up, very important, let's see here. We ordered up 4P3. So we're going to come up 4 inches. And the way they have you do it in this game is they have you pivot off the back corner on the ruler so you don't accidentally turn it too far. But since we have this handy dandy tool right here, we're going to go ahead and take advantage of that. I'm actually going to be pivoting this far. And then we can go ahead and move the rest of our movement, which is going to be a total more of 3 inches. And now the Wick is good to go. The Gurkha and the Maori are in the destroyer phase, but since they're in formation, they're going to be moving with the Wick. So since they're staying in formation, if you remembered a moment ago, they were about this distance. Again, you're going to want to measure this out a little more carefully, but for examples, we're going to keep things just like that. So now we're done with the cruiser movement phase. So if we had destroyers separated, which we don't right now, they would get their own phase as well because they're fast and easy to touch. That's it for the movement phase. Now we'll move to the shooting phase. So in the shooting phase, what you have to do is all battleships shoot first. In our case, the only people who have anything battleship written on their sheets are these guys, but they have no guns, so too bad. So we'll go ahead and skip to the cruiser shooting phase. So the cruisers can only fire during the cruiser phase. Now, ignore formation orders. They shoot in the phase that they're set. You guys can see our cruiser is in this cruiser phase, the destroyer is in the destroyer phase. So now we're going to go ahead and record any of the targets for torpedo attacks. That's not going to happen, so I'm going to ignore that. Now we're going to go ahead and record targets for main battery weapons. So you're not allowed to pre-measure range as usual, but I'm going to guess that he's probably in range of MV1. If not, the shots go in the water, whatever. So we're going to go ahead and edit this now. We're going to say main battery target. We're going to do MV-1. Now, these guys don't have a main battery gun, so they don't have to declare their attack because they only have secondary batteries. Likewise, for this guy, he only has secondary batteries, so we don't have to do that. So now the other team, of course, would write in with their main battery targets, and then we'd all reveal what our targets were. When we reveal, we actually are going to take this thing called a splash marker and place it on the thing that we're shooting at. This is important because if you have more than one ship attacking one target, you end up with all these splashes, which actually make it more difficult to hit him. So there's only one main gun battery attacking him. So in this case, there's only going to be a single splash on the freighter. If we had another cruiser also shooting, that would be happening. So that's pretty good news. Taking a look real quickly, that's looking pretty good. I think everything's good to go. And that would be the end of that. So keep in mind, we always do Battleship Phase first. We're done with that. The cruiser shooting phase, he's declared his targets. He is good to go. So now it's time to actually do the fun part, which is doing the shooting. But one thing that I think I've just occurred to me is we might not have line of sight on the target that we're attacking. Let's see, for line of sight, we're going to go ahead and draw a straight line. Connecting the center points of the shooter, the center point of the... Hey, we are in range. That's good news. You can't have a situation where, let's see here, the line crosses any part of an intervening ship, not including the base. The ship is within 6 inches of the shooter or the target, and it's the size equal to or larger than either the... Aha, we're lucky. So in this case, the destroyer is actually so small he's not blocking the line of sight. So anyway, so that's a 44-inch shot. So now we're going to go ahead and see what happens. So scooting over again, remember we're still in the cruiser shooting phase. We're going to go ahead and take a look at his main batteries. So he's looking right now. He's shooting out of the port side. So let's see what we have here. So we have 2 guns and 2 turrets on the port. 2 guns and 2 turrets on the port. That's a total of 1, 2, 3. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 2 times 2 is going to be an 8 total. So we get 8 dice for our attack with our 8-inch guns. Taking a look at our secondary battery. I don't think it would matter anyway. No, we're not in range. So we're going to go ahead and get the dice for our attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. That's a lot of dice. When making attacks, everybody attacks kind of on their own, but damage is issued at the end of the phase. So at the end of the battleship phase, you actually do apply the damage. At the end of the cruiser phase, you apply the damage, and so on and so forth. The exceptions are torpedoes, but we'll take a look at those in a minute. So anyway, so to take the shot now, we're going to go ahead and measure range one more time. It's a range of 45, because we're going to round up. Taking a look here, it looks like 45 puts us greater than our long range bracket, but less than our extreme range bracket. So we're going to go ahead here and we're going to take a look. So starting with the base number, this is the basic how hard it is to hit. It is listed at the top of the sheet that you're working with. In this case, it's Merchant Vessel 1, so he's a 5 up. So we just start right at the top. First things first, we're at extreme range. So that 5 up just jumped to a 10 up, which is, that's going to be a little harder. Scooting down here, do we have any special fire control? We're not Japanese, we're not German. I believe we do have radar fire control. Excellent. So that subtracts 1. So our 10 becomes a 9 now, which isn't terrible. Let's see, rate of fire, secondary battery weapon, nope, 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 nope. All right, did the target move less than 2 inches? In our particular case, the target moved 4 inches, as you recall, so that does not count. We're not less than 6 inches. We're not more than 60 inches. There's no extra splash markers. There's no fire control critical hit. There's no list. Looks good. No crew rating. We're not really crossing the T, even though we kind of are. Okay, we're good. So it sounds like our final 2-hit number is going to be 9. So we get 8 dice, and we have to hit on a 9 or a 10. Let's take a look how we did. I see 1, 2. Oh boy. 2 shells at that kind of a range is actually fairly reasonable if you ask me. So anyway, what do we do with this now? So now what we're going to do is see if our shells penetrate the armor of the target. So in each one of the guns you have this little pen variable. In this case it's 5. You're going to compare that plus a 10-sided dice with the armor value of the ship. So in this case we're going to penetrate no matter what. But we're going to go ahead and do this anyway. So 5 plus 9 would be 14 is greater than 3. 2 plus 9 is 11, which is also greater than 3. There's a really, really cool rule, actually. 5 plus 2 is 7, which is greater than 3. There's a really, really cool rule in this game that says it's optional, by the way, if you're 3 times the penetration when you do your roll, you actually over-penetrate and only do a quarter of the damage. But we're going to ignore that for now. So for each hit that penetrates. To penetrate, by the way, you have to be greater than the armor value. You do full damage. So in this case, it's 5 damage times 2 because we have the 2 dice. So Merchant Vessel 1 is down to 22 hit points. Remember, this doesn't take effect until the end of the cruiser's shooting round. You'll see why that's important a little later on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that and I'll go ahead and put those away. Oh, by the way, if you have a penetrating hit, you always score a critical hit, which I think is really, really kind of interesting here. So I'm taking a look here. We have to, oh, by the way, since we're at extreme range, you'd actually add 3 to your penetration roll. I'm glad I came over here and looked. So we penetrated on a 10 and I think it was a 14 respectively, which is, yeah, that's more than enough. All right, moving on. So now we're going to go ahead and do the criticals. So to do a critical, it's real simple. You simply take this, give it a quick roll. That looks like an 11 to me, and you compare it on here, secondary battery turret. So if you had a secondary battery, like for example, if this guy took a hit, you just go up to the turret and you scratch this number out and you put a 1. You have to randomly determine which one gets hit. He doesn't have a secondary battery turret, so based on the rules, he would take an automatic extra 2 damage. So quickly coming up here, go ahead, back that out. That puts him to 2 damage. That makes perfect sense. 20 damage, which is actually, he's about a third of the way down if you want to think about it another way. So now we have to roll for the second penetrating hit, which is also a critical. It's 1 plus 3 is a 4, consulting the chart. That is a fire. So fires are a little different in this game. So I'm going to grab a fire token. I'm going to go ahead and put it on this guy. The moment you receive a fire, you have to roll to see what that fire does on your ship. So there's a little table called Fire Damage Control Table that you're going to go ahead and roll at this point. So if you have a crew modifier, this is when you can modify it. So they scored a 3, which means the fire is extinguished and they take 1 extra damage. So that actually was pretty lucky. So that fire must have been kind of a weak fire because it really didn't do much. You have to roll in the damage control phase also. So Merchant Vessel 1, after the first volley, is almost halfway destroyed. So that's all the end of the cruiser phase. Now we go to the destroyer phase. By the way, if the cruiser had any secondary weapons that were in range, which we don't, we'd go ahead and roll them at this time. Also, if you're in a situation where you don't penetrate, you A, don't score a critical hit, and B, your damage score is halved. So you have to kind of watch out for that, especially if you're dealing with battleships and stuff like that. So we move to the destroyer phase. Neither destroyer is in range, so we're going to skip that phase. We move to the end phase. Nobody needs to do any battle or damage control. We're good to go. We collect all the splash markers, and we are good for that round. And that's the basic gist of the game. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going with this a little bit and see what happens. So let's move to turn 2. So if you remember, we start with the battleship movement phase, which in this case would be the merchant vessels. So he's going to go ahead and he's going to automatically record what he's doing this turn. These guys are just going to stay right in formation. Perfect. And now, since there's no battleships on my side, they simultaneously will move. Go ahead and grab our handy dandy ruler. These guys move 4 inches. This gets a little interesting once the battle damage starts to kind of catch up. It becomes a little more difficult to stay in formation. Very realistic. Okay, so that is the end of the battleship movement phase. We now move to the cruiser movement phase, in which case the Wick is going to go ahead and just basically charge right ahead. So we're going to go ahead and say turn 2. He's going to move, let's see, his maximum of 8 speed, so we're just going to go 8. These guys, of course, are going to say turn 2. They're going to stay in formation with this guy. And they're good to go. So now we're going to go ahead and grab a ruler again. Screw it up to the tippy top. Place it up against the edge of the ship. And now we're going to move forward a total of 8 inches. These two guys are moving with us, even though they're in the destroyer phase, because they are in our formation. So we are good to go once again. The only reason this guy can shoot through him, by the way, is the destroyer is a size class smaller than he is. Okay, so now we go on to the shooting phase since there's no separate destroyers, although I'm going to break them off next turn if I have to. Okay, so the battleship phase is always first. These guys are in the battleship phase for movement, but not for shooting. They don't actually shoot, so we're going to ignore that. And so we go right to the cruiser phase, which would be the HMS Wick. So he has to declare his attacks. So in this case, he's going to do aim. He's going to go for MV1 once again. You don't have to declare secondary attacks. There's no other cruisers, so we're done declaring. Now it's time to actually, whoops, looks like it got chewed up there. Go ahead and fix that real quick. We'll just say MV1. There we go. These guys are in the destroyer phase, so they don't get to shoot yet anyway, even if they were in room. These guys don't get to attack. So now we simultaneously resolve attacks. So in this particular case, I'm going to be attacking him with my 8-inch guns. This is my main battery. Go ahead and grab our splash marker and drop that on there. If I had more than one cruiser, you'd probably see more than one splash, and that actually adds a penalty, as you saw. So anyway, let's go ahead and calculate the range now. We're measuring center to center. In this case, we have a range of, it looks like 38 inches. 38 inches puts us in the long range band. Calculating the number of guns we can fire, it looks like these guys can all attack down the port. I should say this is going to be a starboard shot. Yes, it's going to be a starboard shot. So we're going to go ahead and get 8 dice again. Let's calculate the 2-hit number. So his default 2-hit is 5. Coming down here, start at the top, 5. We're at long range, plus 3 becomes 8. We have radar, so that becomes 7. We're not less than 20 inches. Target moved a little bit. There's no extra splash marker going down. We're definitely crossing the T, but that is an optional rule. So we have 5 plus 3 is 8 minus 1 for radar is 7. So this is going to be probably the end of MV1. So we're going to go ahead and collect our 8 dice. Okay, oh boy. And we're going to roll them, and we're hitting on 7s or better. I think this is going to be pretty messy. Let's take a look here. So we have 1 hit, 2 hit, 3 hit, 4 hit, 5 hits. So that's game over. So remember, our penetrating rolls come next. So penetration for this guy is 5 plus a d10 against a 3. So no matter what we roll here, it's going to be pretty nasty. Let's go ahead and roll that and see what happens. So that's 9, that's 10, that's 10, that's 14, and that's 9. So every single one of the shells penetrate, so each one of them do 5 damage. 5 times 5 is 25, 25 out of 19. Ooh, oh boy. So he's at -6. So he is done. But remember, damage isn't applied until the end of the phase. So he could actually have been attacked by 4 different ships at one time, and even though he's way into the negatives, he doesn't actually die until that phase ends. So we're going to go ahead and end up the cruiser phase. He's not going to use any of his secondary guns at this time. So we're going to end the cruiser phase. We go to the destroyer phase. The destroyers, let's see here, their range on their guns, if they're using the 4-inchers, is a 36-inch range, which is actually in range, I believe, but for the Maori, but not for the Gurkha. So the Maori does not need to declare it because it's a secondary battery. So he is going to attack with both his 4-inch guns off the starboard side at, we'll attack MV2. So let's go ahead and measure center to center. That gives us a range of 39. The attack is worthless, and it lands in the water somewhere over here. So if I was still attacking the freighter, I probably, let's see if we actually would have hit him. 34. Yeah, we would have been able to hit him, but in general, that was not successful. So now we move to the kind of the cleanup, the torpedo phase, which we don't have yet. So we're going to move up to the cleanup phase. So this guy sank. So again, he actually was removed at the end of the cruiser phase. Let me be more specific. So I'm going to go ahead and add him to the pile of sunk ships. And that's it. So now we're going to go ahead and move to the next turn. There's no initiative or anything because everybody does everything simultaneously. So first things first is the Battleship Movers. So this guy has been destroyed, so he's going to take over the role of flagship. He's going to go ahead and order a turn. Turn 3, he's going to order a turn. He's going to come forward 1. You always have to move forward 1 inch, by the way, to turn. He's going to order a port turn, which takes away 1 movement point, and then he only has 2 left. Turn 3, he's going to remain in formation. So now, since there's no battleships on my side, these guys have to move normally. So I'm going to go ahead and put this up against the side like this. He has to move 1 inch forward. Then he's going to do a turn up to 90 degrees. That was a little excessive. In the real game, like I said, you want to take him on the bottom corner so you don't give or lose any space when you do this. And then he's going to come forward another 2 inches. Pretty good. Now this guy, of course, would be following in his wake, but if you do that real quickly, you realize why we normally use that edge right there in order to do this, because that actually would have put him right here, which means when he follows his wake, he would have ended up pretty much right there as well, the same amount of movement. So now we go to the cruiser movement phase. In this particular turn, we're going to go ahead and break off the destroyers, because the destroyers are actually faster, and I want to be able to use them for a torpedo across the T attack. So when you break formation, there's no special command or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is for this guy is, this is turn 3, we are going to move forward, let's see here, we're just going to come forward 6. By the way, there's an optional rule for acceleration. So battleships can move 1 inch speed change a turn, cruisers 2, destroyers 3. So if we were playing with that, let's say we want him to only do a 5-inch move, he can't do that because he just can't decelerate that quickly. So we'll go ahead and say he actually is going to just move 6. I already know what my main barrier attack is going to be, so I'm just going to write that down. You shouldn't do that in the real game because the other guy might see your paper. So these guys are completely broken off on their own at this time. So for turn 3, this is the Gurkha. I'm going to really try to avoid that turn. So I'm going to come forward 1 inch. I'm going to take a turn to my starboard. And then I'm going to come forward, let's see, 9, 8, 7 inches. We're going to really step it up a little bit. This guy, the Maori, is also on his own. It's turn 3, so he's going to do a 1s7 also. But I shouldn't have even declared those because we're not in the destroyer phase. So we do the cruiser phase first. Thank you for catching me. All right, so I have for the cruiser, he is 6, come forward 6. That's pretty easy. Let's go ahead and grab my handy dandy ruler. Good. Come forward 6 inches. Super. Now we move to the destroyer phase. So now I write my orders, and now we'd execute them. So I've ordered each one of these guys to come forward by 1 inch. And they can execute up to a 90-degree turn, which is exactly what I'm going to do with them. And I'm going to have them charge forward. What is our distance here? 7 inches. And he is good to go. We'll go ahead and do him as well, the Gurkha. He's going to come forward 1 inch, the minimum for doing a turn. He's going to take a really sharp turn. By the way, destroyers don't turn as fast as battleships do in the real world. We're going to take our 7-inch move, and that puts them in their own little private little thing there. All right, time on to the shooting phase. So in this particular case, we're going to go ahead and have the Wick attack. Too late. Yeah, technically I wouldn't have declared this, but we'll go with our original plan. We'll have him attack MV2 with his main battery. We have no other cruisers in the cruiser shooting phase, so remember, we skipped the battleship phase because there's no battleships. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and attack him with our main guns. Remember, you don't have to declare secondary battery attacks at this time. So we go ahead and good to go. We're going to start by taking our splash marker. Go ahead and we said MV2, so the splash marker goes right here like this. If these guys are firing main batteries, they'd also have splash markers, but they're not at this time. So the Wick, we're going to go ahead and measure range as usual. Center to center. That is a range of 40 inches. It's pretty darn close to 40 inches. Taking a look, that puts us back into extreme range. It happens. So we're still going to get our 8 shots, though. So let's go ahead and calculate the 2 hit. Starting with the number 5. 5 plus 5 is 10, minus 1 for radar. We're getting a beam, but there's no benefit for that. So we're hitting on 9s, which is going to be a little difficult, but we'll see what happens. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, we're hitting on 9s or better. All right, what do we got? We got 1. Yep. So we got 1. So that's 1 hit. So now we roll for penetration. We're adding 5 to this. So 5 and 3 is 8 against his armor value of 3 is considerably more. That's 5 more. So it penetrates and does full damage, which means this 32 now drops to a 27. It also causes a critical hit because it was a penetrating hit. All penetrating hits cause critical hits, by the way. So we get a 3 and a 3. That is a 6. Checking the critical hit table, we get a fire. Ooh, fire. Neat. So we'll grab him a fire, light him on fire, and now you immediately have to have him roll damage control to see what that fire does immediately. So we're going to go ahead and see what happens here. So that is a 6. According to this, the fire continues to burn and he takes 2 more damage. So we'll go ahead and back that out and do 25. He's got to roll this again at the end phase. So that actually works really well for us. So secondary weapons, I know from a second ago that there's no way that my secondary weapons are going to be in range. So we're going to just ignore them. All right, so now we move to the destroyer phase. Our destroyers here, our closest destroyer is the Maori. Again, he doesn't have to declare his attacks because of the fact that he's using secondary weapons only. So he's going to go ahead and attack Merchant Vessel 1, kind of add insult to injury. He's going to attack him with, let's see here. We're going to go with the 4-inch guns in this particular case, even though it's not going to hurt that much. So attacking with the 4-inch guns, we're going to go ahead and measure range center to center. That gives us a 31-inch range. 31-inch range is within range. It is extreme range. So now we go ahead and calculate out what our to hit number is going to be. So he's a 5 plus 5 because it's extreme range brings us up to a 10. Do we have radar? We do, so that brings it down to a 9. Scrolling down, scrolling down, scrolling down. Let's take a look here. Do we have anything else? We are using a secondary weapon here, but it is not less than 20 inches. I'm just checking the effect of that splash real quick, because what I don't want to do is take that into account if it does not need to be. Yes, all splash markers get picked up at the end of that specific round. Sorry if I didn't mention that earlier. So that's not a penalty. So it's going to be a 9 to hit. So now we got to see what guns we can use. We only have one of these guns, but there's 2 guns on that turret in the 4. Oh no. Nope, just kidding. If you take a look, the 4-inch gun is aft, port, starboard. So we actually can't engage him. Bummer! Just kidding. So that would be the end of the destroyer shooting phase. We have no torpedo phase. So now we come to the end phase, where now we have to deal with the damage control problem. The guy who's still on fire has to actually roll a second time per fire at this phase to see what happens with that fire. In this case, he rolls a 6, which means the fire just keeps on going. So he's going to take 2 more damage, bringing him down to 23. And that is the end of that. His fire will remain, and it'll keep bothering him later. All right, now we're going to move on to the next turn. All right, well, we're on turn 4 now. So as usual, we start with the battleship movement phase. The only people who are battleships, quote unquote, are the MV2 and MV3. So they're going to go ahead and order up, just go straight. They're going to try to get off this table if they can get off. We're going to do straight 4. This guy is just going to order to stay in formation. And he is good to go. So we're going to go ahead and move these guys. Again, we're in the battleship phase. Fire moves with them. Go ahead and put that there. We have a movement of 4. So we're going to come up to 4. This guy right here, I can see about the distance. Now we move to the cruiser movement phase. The only cruiser is the Wick. So we're going to go ahead and give him an order as well. What is the cruiser going to do? He's kind of... Okay, I can see exactly what I want to do. So I'm going to order this guy. We're going to do turn 4. We're going to move 1 inch forward. Then we're going to take a turn to starboard. And then we're going to move, let's see, 8, 7, 6 straight. And we'll leave that targeting for a little later. So since he's the only cruiser, he gets to do this phase all by his lonesome. So I'm going to go ahead and move him forward 1 inch. He's going to go ahead and execute his 90-degree maximum turn. And then he gets to move the rest of his inches as well. Go ahead and plop that down. Total move is 6. So he comes shooting forward, closing that range. He's going to try to chop these guys off. I should have had him turn a little less, but by the time he gets to do it, they're going to be here anyway, so it's pretty easy. It's just leading him a little bit. Now we move to the destroyer movement phase. My destroyers are going to be closing very aggressively. So turn 4, we are literally going to move all 8 of our inches just forward. This guy is not in his formation, so he's operating separately. Obviously, you can see how formations simplify things a lot. Oh, I'm sorry. He can move a total of 9. Let me correct that. There we go. So for turn 4, he's going to just move forward 9. Let's hope it doesn't get them too close. All right, let's go ahead and measure now. We're going to go ahead and move our destroyers. Remember, this is done simultaneously with the other player. He's going to zip forward 9. Go grab him. He is also going to zip forward 9. I think these guys might be in range of the 4.7s. We shall see. Okay, so now we go into the shooting phase. Our battleship phase is always first, but there's no battleship, so we go to the cruiser phase. Our only cruiser in the game is the Wick. So now he's got to declare what his targets are going to be. His main battery is going to be attacking MV2. He's going to finish the job. No, MV3. He's going to see if he can do enough damage to the other guy and let the destroyers take care of the burning freighter. We have no other cruisers, so we're just going to go ahead and execute his attack first. So first things first, we declare, since it's a main battery attack, we're going to go ahead and drop our splash marker. So the splash marker goes here from his main batteries. If we had another guy shooting at him, you'd have another, and that'd be a penalty. Let's work out the 2 hit. So the range is center to center. That's a 35-inch range. Taking a look real quick, 35 inches puts us in the long range bracket. Start with the 2 hit number, which is 5 up. We're going to go ahead, since we're in the long range bracket, add 3 becomes 8. We have radar, so it's -1, so we're hitting on 7s. So how many guns are in the 4 arc that we can actually use here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. So 1, 2, 3, 4 hitting on 7s. None. Okay. So MV3 is feeling pretty lucky right now. So go ahead and put that away because we didn't hit anything. So we can now do secondary attacks. So in the case of secondary attacks, we're going to go ahead and do that as well. Let's see. Are we in range? No. So that's not going to happen, unfortunately. So he gets to kind of cool his heels. Grab our splash marker and go ahead and put that away. And now it's time for the destroyer phase. So the Maore is pretty confident he can hit MV2. So the Maore is going to attack not with main batteries, but he's going to be attacking with his secondary batteries. Let's see, do we have anything facing forward that we could actually use here? Here we go. So we have four 4.7-inch guns that are facing forward. So what's the range on those guys? Extreme range is 28 inches, so we have to be less than 28 inches away. We're going to do center to center, 22 inches. All right, we're in range this time. Okay, so 22 inches counts as extreme range for this guy. But 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do it as usual. 5. We're extreme range, that goes up to 10. Do we have radar? We do, so that drops down to a 9. And we're going to get 4 dice because there's only 4 guns that can actually point in that direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, hitting on 9s. Let's see here, we have a 9. We have an, oh, this is actually interesting. You'll see why in a second. All right, so we got 2 hits. Now we have to do penetration. Penetration is actually interesting this time because the penetration on 4.7 is only a 1. So there's a chance we might not penetrate. So this will be interesting. 1 plus 5 is 6, which is greater than that, so that's 1 hit. 3 plus 1 is also greater than this, so unfortunately it is a successful attack. Both shots penetrate, both shots will cause critical hits. So let's do damage first. The damage is 2. Okay. So 2 times 2 is 4, so that's going to drop him down to 19. Oh yeah, we're whittling him away. But more importantly, we got 2 critical hits, which actually could end up doing the deed, we'll see. All right, we got a 14 there. Taking a look at our critical hit. We have a flooding hit. Ooh, something new. So we're going to grab a flooding marker, and then as soon as you place that marker, he's got to roll for damage control for only the flooding. So he rolled a 2, so the flooding gets contained, which means the flooding actually gets removed, and he takes an additional point of damage because of all that extra flooding that we just caused. So tough luck on the destroyer. He put a little bit of water inside of him anyway. So let's go ahead and roll the dice for a second critical hit. That gives us a 9 this time. A 9 is a secondary battery turret. We don't have one of those. So you take, if I recall correctly, I'm just going to confirm this real quickly. We take an extra 2 points of hull damage instead. So that puts him down to 16. He's still got a fire to contend with. Okay, so any other destroyers? We've got the other destroyer here. We have the Gurkha, which, yeah, he's going to try to attack MV3. So going to go ahead and point it like this. That's a 30-inch range. The Gurkha, I'm sorry, we were actually using the Maori a minute ago, but they're the same type of destroyer, so it worked out okay. So taking a look here, do we have anybody in the 4 that can hit that distance? No, we don't. So it would have gone splash, splash on the water. There's no ammo penalties in this game, fortunately, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, on to the end phase. So the only end phase thing we need to worry about today is MV2 is on fire. So he needs to go ahead and roll on the damage control chart to see what that fire does at this time. He rolls a 7. So the fire continues to burn. So now he's going to take an additional 2 damage. So he's down to 14. He's really struggling. Very, very much struggling. All right, let's go ahead and grab that dice and pull it out of the way. And that is the end of that turn. Now we move on to turn 5. Turn 5 will begin with the movement of the battleships. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So MV2 is our leader here. So we'll say turn 5. He's going to scoot away for this gentleman over here. Ooh, I made a mistake. That does not say MV2. That says Wick. That must have been making you guys crazy this whole time. Turn 5, as before. And we begin the battleship movement phase. So we're moving 4 inches. He's taking that fire with him. I'm going to go ahead and put that right there so I don't accidentally hit it. 1, 2, 3, 4 inches. The fire stays with him. This guy's going to be about the same distance. Now we move to the cruiser phase. So the Wick is our only cruiser, so he gets to move on his own. We're going to record our movement orders. Let me go ahead and go up here so I can actually see what I'm typing. Turn 5. I'm going to do a 1S6 again. You'll see why. These guys are in the destroyer phase. They don't move yet. So I'm doing a 1S6. You'll see why. I'm going to move 1 inch forward. Then I'm going to do a teeny tiny little notch this way. I think I overdid it. There we go. And now I'm going to do my other 6. Oop, it brings us right here. Okay, that's fine. All right, destroyer movement phase. In this case, we've got these 2 guys. We're going to order the Gurkha first. Let's see what the Gurkha's up to. The Gurkha's in the back, so I actually want them. They both move together, so they're not going to hit each other. So we want to close the distance as fast as possible, but I'm actually going to have the Maori try to Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Okay. So the Maori, who's up front, I'm actually going to order him to do a 4P4 because he has 9 movement points. The Gurkha on the flip side, I'm actually going to have him keep coming at full speed. All right, let's go ahead and execute our movements. So the Maori, who is leading the way here, he is at 4P4. So I'm going to go ahead and place this here. I'm going to come forward 1, 2, 3, 4 inches. And now I'm going to have him rotate pretty aggressively. And now I'm going to have him come the next 4 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4 inches as well. I'm trying to get him into torpedo range. At least he'll be able to use his back guns this time. All right, let's go ahead and grab the Gurkha. The Gurkha, of course, is moving forward 9 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 inches. Good to go. So my destroyers are splitting up to kind of bracket them a little better. We'll see what happens. All right, now we go to the battleship shooting phase. No battleships. Cruiser shooting phase. We have to declare our target. The Wick is a little annoyed that MV3 is getting away, so he's going to go ahead and attack MV3. Main battery attacks MV3. Whoop, that's M3. That's fine. We're going to go ahead and declare him with a splash marker. And now we're going to go ahead and calculate our 2-hit. So we're only going to be hitting him with 4 batteries based on where he's parked. Center to center gives us a range of 28 inches rounded down. 28 inches puts him in the long range. It wouldn't have mattered anyway. But we are in secondary weapon range this time, so that'll be interesting. So we can only attack him with guns in our 4, so that's going to be 2 times 2, which is 4. So we get to attack him with 4 dice at least. Let's go ahead and work out his 2-hit number. So it's 5, since he is a 28-inch range, that puts him in the long range bracket. So 5 plus 3 becomes an 8, minus 1 for radar becomes a 7. So we need 7s or higher on 4 dice for our main battery. Let's see here. A whole lot of miss. Lucky for us, we get a secondary battery attack as well. Our secondary batteries aren't even facing the correct direction. So unfortunately, MV3 is feeling pretty lucky. End of the cruiser shooting phase. We're going to go ahead and remove that splash marker, and then we move to the destroyer shooting phase. So he's got no main battery, so you don't have to declare it. Maori is actually, yes, he is in range. Oh, this is great. So Maori is going to open up with every single gun he has on the left side of his ship. So let's see, how many port guns do we have? 2, which is 4. He has another 2, 2. Oh, they're different range though. Okay, so we'll do the 4.7s first. Maori into MV2, that is a range of, looks like 15. So this is a pretty short range for us. So 15 is considered long range. So we're going to take the 5. We're going to add the long range penalty, which makes this an 8. Minus 1 for radar is a 7. How many guns are going to be attacking him from the 4.7 category, however? Let's see here. It's 4, 5, 6 guns, it looks like, that can do this. 6 guns. So that's 4, 5, 6. And we're going to be hitting him on a 5, 6, 7, 8, 7 up. Let's see what happens. Nope, nope, nope. 1. 1. So we're going to go ahead and roll penetration. Remember, the penetration in this particular case is going to be 1. So we need to roll at least a 4 here. So it's a 3 is okay. So 1 plus 3 is 4, which is greater than the armor value of 3. So it's a penetrating hit. So it immediately does 5 damage, which drops him down to 9. And we have to check for a critical. Or, well, we do have a critical. We have to see what the critical actually does. Critical does a 5. Taking a look at our critical chart. 5 is another fire. That doesn't mean the other fire goes away. So we're going to take a fire and we're going to add a second fire to him. Okay, so now he's got to roll damage control immediately for the brand new fire he got. That is a 2, which means the fire actually got extinguished. So lucky day, lucky day. But he still takes a single point of damage from that little fire that we just created a minute ago. So he's good to go. All right, now we're going to go ahead and use our 4-inch guns. We also have 2 of these on the port side. Let's see here. We're at a range. What was it? 15 was our range. So taking a look real quickly, that puts us in the medium range bracket, which is actually not terrible. Medium range would be 5, would be the target number, or medium range plus 1 is 6, minus 1 for radar is 5. That's not bad. We get 2 dice, we're hitting on a 5. So 75% chance. 1, 2. So we get 2 hits. We need to check to see if these are penetrating hits. So we're going to take the number of the penetration, which is a 1, and we're going to go ahead and add whatever we get on these to it. So 1 plus 6 is 7, which is greater than the armor value of 3. 1 plus 6 is also 7, all greater. So those are 2 more penetrating hits. Damage is 2 times 2 is 4. So it's going to drop us down to 4, but it also does 2 critical hits because they're penetrating. Let's see what happens this time. So we get a 7. So a 7 is a torpedo mount hit. If he doesn't have torpedoes, we treat it as a secondary. He has no secondaries, so he takes another 2 damage. So that was a pretty good hit. All right, we roll for the other critical. A 5 again. 5 is considered another fire. Wow. He is having a tough day. Must be using high explosive ammunition. We have to roll for damage control immediately for that new fire we just created. So that is a 1, which means the fire is extinguished. So we take a single more damage. And that fire goes away. So he's doomed, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, so now the Gurkha gets to go ahead and do his attack. He's going to be attacking MV3. So his range here is a range of 20 on the nose. So Gurkha, let's see here, 4 guns that have a 20-inch range. We're in luck. It looks like the 4.7-inch, which is a 4-gun. Yes, the 4.7 is a 4-gun. There's 4 of them total. We are at long range. Long range means 5 plus 3 is 8 minus 1 is 7. And we get 4 dice for it. We're attacking MV3. Let's see here. We needed a 7. We got nothing. Womp womp. Okay, so MV3 continues to be completely invincible. All right, now we do we did the cruiser phase, we did the destroyer phase, and we no torpedo phase. We're good to go. So at this particular point, it's time to go ahead and do damage control. So this guy still has a fire, so he has to roll to see what actually happens with the progress of the fire. So he scores a 1, which means he extinguishes the fire. Whenever you extinguish the fire, you also take 1 point of damage for that fire, which means the fire went out because the ship was underwater. MV2 is no longer with us, so he'd be a flaming wreck. We add him to the casualty pile. For shame. And now we move on to the next turn. So the battle's not over yet. There's still 1 freighter. He's feeling pretty confident because he hasn't even gotten dinged up yet. He's still at his original 32, but we'll see what happens. All right, so we're going to begin at the battleship movement phase, which in this case there's only 1, which is going to be this poor guy. Turn 6, he is going to go forward 4. So we're going to go ahead and cheat and use our built-in little measuring tool here. Save us just a little bit of time. And now we move to the cruiser phase. There's only 1 cruiser here. I can see exactly what he's going to be doing. That's pretty straightforward. So he's going to be taking a gentle turn to starboard, and he's going to basically be shooting off at full speed. All right, so he's going to come forward 1 inch because you have to come forward an inch before you can turn. All right, he's going to go ahead and turn. I'm going to turn that much, and then he's going to come forward his next 6 inches. You can see how nice it is when everything's just kind of written out for you. Don't forget stuff. Okay, destroyer movement phase. The Gurkha and the Maori are still doing pretty good here. Let's see here. The Gurkha is a mile away, so the Gurkha is going to go ahead and move forward. The Maori, yeah, the Maori is going to shoot ahead. So both these guys are just going to be proceeding at 9. Helps if you do your turns correctly, doesn't it? Turn 6, 9. That's pretty easy. Okay, so Maori is going to charge forward 9 inches, which is going to put us within torpedo range, I hope. Bingo. All right, Gurkha, you are also moving forward 9 inches. And we are good to go. Now we begin the shooting phase. So the cruiser here does have line of sight on the freighter. He's going to go ahead and do his usual thing here. So we're going to attack with our main battery. We'll grab a splash marker, drop it right on the freighter to indicate that we're attacking it with our main batteries. How many force guns do we have? We have a total of 4. So let's go ahead and work out the range. We're doing center to center, just like we did before. It's 23 inches. 23 inches. For us, let's take a look here. 23 inches is medium range. Uh-oh, that's going to be fun. By the way, when you're doing penetration, don't forget these modifiers because I keep doing it. All right, so we're at medium range this time. So MV3 has a 5 up. Medium range goes to a 6 minus 1 becomes a 5 up. That's actually really easy. So we're going to take our 4 dice because we can only shoot with the 4 guns here. And we're going to take a crack. So we're looking at a 5 up. 1 hit, 2 hit, 3 hit. 4 hit. Wow. So 4 hit, we have to calculate if they all penetrate. Our penetration number is 5 plus whatever these dice roll out to be. A lot. So every single one of those is going to exceed the 3 armor. So we're going to do a total of 5 times 4 or 20 damage. So this is a heck of a shot that we just succeeded at shooting him with, if that makes sense. Redundancy. Okay, so now we have to roll for individual critical hits. So we had 4 hits, and they're all penetrated, so we need 4 individual critical hits. Let's hope none of these are 20s. All right, so our first critical hit is a 7. So that is a torpedo mount, which we count as a secondary hit. Since we don't have a secondary gun, it just is 2 damage, so that's 18. No biggie. We have a 4. A 4 is a fire. So we're going to go ahead and grab our fire and go ahead and mark this guy with it. We have to do a damage control roll immediately. So that is a 3. So the fire actually gets extinguished. So I guess it wasn't as bad as a fire as they thought it was, but he still takes 1 point of damage from the burn. So we're going to go ahead and check this one. This is a 6, which I think is also another fire. So even though he put that fire out, he went and got another one anyway. So he's going to have to roll immediately for damage control on that fire. So that is a 4. So a 4 means the fire continues to burn. So he's going to immediately take 2 damage. So our last critical hit, this is the last critical hit, is a 14. Let's see, a 14 is flooding. So we're going to have to do a... he's on fire and he's flooding. They'll put each other out, I swear. He's going to have to immediately do a damage control check to see what that flooding actually does to him. So that is a 3. Taking a look at the flooding control table, he takes 2 extra damage. So unfortunately, that sends him to the bottom of the ocean. So that is game for him, unless of course I just goofed this up, which I probably did. Cool. So anyway, he's gone, but again, damage doesn't take effect until the end of the cruiser round. But that's not what I wanted to do. I want to actually remove the damage from... That's game, by the way. But we're going to go ahead and remove all that damage for a reason. And we're going to go ahead and modify some things here. And we're going to go ahead and set up this situation. That's what I was hoping to do earlier. Let's do a torpedo attack. Now, torpedoes are handled pretty much the same way as gunnery. However, you have to declare a torpedo in your movement log when you actually do it. And second is there's a couple different factors that actually impact if a torpedo hits. We'll see that in a second. So anyway, let's say it's the destroyer phase, and this destroyer, the Maori, wants to fire some torpedoes. So this is going to be a port side attack on the Maori. Taking a look down here, let's see, we have a quad mount, a port. Good. Sweet. So the range here is 6. So taking a look at range for torpedo, that's considered a medium range attack for the torpedo. So the modifiers are pretty straightforward. We're going to take a 5, which is his normal 2 hit. We're going to come down here. He is considered medium range, so that's +1. So it becomes a 6. Radar and stuff like that don't apply here. Doesn't count. Coming down, 6, 6. Ah, look at this. Gun or torpedo attack 6 inches or less. Check. So we're back down to a 5. Looking down, looking down, looking down, looking down, looking down, looking down. Good. So that is a 5. However, the size of the torpedo tube also modifies that. By the way, don't roll to hit torpedoes until all the other gunnery, battleship, cruiser, and destroyer phases are over. Also remember, you have to declare them when you attack them. You can't just go. But anyway, we're working out the 2-hit roll. So starting back from the top, because I lost my place, 5 + 1 is 6. Going down here, we're less than 6 inches, so it goes back to 5. Scrolling down here, how many torpedo tubes are we actually attacking with here? It's a quad mount, so the 5 becomes a 4 up to hit. Now this is really cool. So you're going to take your die at the torpedo phase after all the other gunnery phases, and you're going to roll, and we're looking for something better than a 5. So if you take a look, we got... There we go. So now we have our 5, which means our torpedo hits. So we're going to go ahead and roll to see if the torpedo does any damage. So that's a 10. So you take that 10, you compare it to the secondary armor value of 0, which means the torpedo hits. The torpedo does as much damage as its size. So you do 21 damage to MV3. That's a lot. But here's a cool thing, and you'll like this. If you succeed at hitting a target with a torpedo, you get to take that dice, add 1 to the 2 hit number, and then do it again. So in this case, I got an 8, which actually means I had a second torpedo hit. So I could go work out the criticals in that. Go ahead and roll that again. So I got a 9. That's a third torpedo hit. So again, we'd be comparing against a 5, a 6, and a 7. So if I get an 8 or better, we actually hit him with all 4 torpedoes. Aw, so we hit him with 3 of the torpedoes. A torpedo that penetrates always does a critical hit. And there's actually a custom table just for the purposes of handling torpedoes because they're kind of their own thing. So in this case, we got 3 out of the 4 torpedoes hit. Let's see what this actually would have done with us critical-wise. This would have done over 80 damage, so it wouldn't have mattered. I don't need to roll these against a 32 health target. But let's see, one of these would have caused flooding. The next one would have caused flooding. The next one would have caused flooding. And the last one would have caused a fire. So this freighter is done. Torpedoes are dangerous. But fun fact, the Maori is out of torpedoes. Did I spell Maori? No, I spelled it right. He's out of torpedoes for the rest of the game. Japanese ships, especially destroyers, actually had reloads, and you circle it on the table to let them know. Normally on the real tabletop, we'd come over here for the Maori, and we go ahead and scratch this out because of the fact it is now empty. So we can't do that again, but it would have completely blown the freighter out of the water. So anyway, that's Naval Thunder. It's a really, really solid game. It's very straightforward. I suggest you pick it up. I think you can get it on the Wargame Revolt, and there's probably a couple other spots you can get it as well. Aircraft rules and submarine rules are handled very, very differently, and that's probably something I'll do live as opposed to in Tabletop Sim, because it's just easier to see. Enjoy!